MiddleGround Capital had given us a particular search for a Tala Steel for a chief exec. There was really strong requirements on this search, as this is hopefully a flagship deal for MiddleGround Capital. They were looking for an experienced chief executive, somebody with private equity-backed experience, somebody that had worked within the steel business, had experience with steel billets and had very strong connections throughout the supply chain nature. They had to be based and located in Mississippi. They had to have a 200 million plus revenue experience. They had to have a strong operational background coupled with multi-site manufacturing experience. This search had a very small talent pool, not only based on location, but also experience. There hasn't been a huge amount of deals done in private equity within this particular niche, selling into the solar industry. So we had quite a bit of work to do to find the right person. Coupled with that, the business is in a fairly undesirable in its entirety location. It's not a major city or major prominent state. And also the chairman, who I completely agree with, has a very high bar for talent and wouldn't take anything unless it ticked all the boxes. Three things made this particularly challenging. One was the location, as I explained earlier, being probably needed to be there already or have come from a surrounding state in a similar type environment. Second was the experience required here. It wasn't a wide brief. It wasn't we can look at different types of profiles. The private equity-backed experience and the direct competitor, the direct manufacturing, the direct product experience was all absolutely critical, which inevitably gave us a very small talent pool in which to find people from, and we really had to do a full and complete search process to get this particular candidate for this business. We of course used the 15-step process, which Raw Selection uses on every single engaged and retained search. What we also did with this particular process, which is how we found the candidate John Higgins, is we actually went through any previous press release that had ever been published with regards to a steel manufacturing business as a building products company that was obviously private equity backed, based in the US, and we looked at all of the previous C-suite executives and reached out to them. If it was a CFO that was listed, we reached out to them and asked for recommendation on the chief executive, and so on and so forth. And that enabled us to find somebody who was clearly not listed. They were on LinkedIn, but they weren't well tagged. It wasn't in the actual space. It looked like they worked for a slightly different industry, and we found the right candidate for the business, approached them, and obviously secured that individual. We knew that this was a particularly difficult search, so therefore we put our top recruiters onto this particular process. I worked on the search myself, and Jack Burns also worked on the search. We needed to make sure that we got this right. Like with any search, when they're particularly difficult and complex with location, experience, everything was rolled into one here. We needed all hands on deck. We utilized, of course, the research team, as we always did, but we put the most experienced individual, the most highest performers that we've got in the business on this process. I suppose we knew it from the outset, but it really did surprise us, the very small talent pool. We obviously had a huge supplier base that supplied into Tala Steel that clearly we had an approach in, but had to be very considerate on Tala Steel's relationships. But it was a very proactive approach and a very small talent pool that really did come down to very small numbers, under 100 people that we knew we could do this job with the right experience that had the credentials.